It's been a lousy week for Bitcoin ETF believers. SEC Chair Gary Gensler has thrown cold water on the idea he will imminently approve the many Bitcoin ETFs now under registration. Joining us to discuss, Dave Laval, Global Head of ETFs at Grayscale Investments, and Simeon Hyman, Global Investment Strategist for ProShares. Dave, Grayscale runs the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. You said you want to convert that fund into an ETF as soon as you can get approval. Handicap this for us. Gensler seems to be signaling he will support Bitcoin future ETFs, but not a pure Bitcoin ETF. Is that your read? And is a Bitcoin ETF futures product really inferior, as many people seem to think it is, as an inferior product?
Well, thanks for having us, Bob. Really appreciate it. Look, we read Chair Gensler's comments to be very positive, in fact, because the story is no longer if there's going to be a Bitcoin ETF, but when there's going to be a Bitcoin ETF. At Grayscale, we've been committed to converting GBTC into an ETF, and that's just the start of our ambitions in terms of growing our ETF business. And we're not ruling out any structure. It could be futures-based, it could be spot-based. And Bob, you know as well as anybody, through the entire evolution of the ETF market, regulators have gotten comfortable with each new asset class that they and investors want to be put into the ETF wrapper.
Simeon, you were in the right place at the right time. You just launched last week the Bitcoin Strategy ETF. It's a mutual fund that holds Bitcoin futures, a mutual fund. Do you agree that Gensler is likely to approve a Bitcoin futures ETF before a pure ETF product? And what's Gensler's rationale for just doing a futures Bitcoin ETF first?
Sure. So I'm going to be careful not to opine on what we think the SEC might do. But indeed, right now, the only way to do this is with futures. And we were very pleased to be the first out with BTCFX to use futures to get Bitcoin exposure in a mutual fund. And the advantage of this approach is clear. The futures market is regulated, so you've got the CME, you've got the CFTC, you've got the clearinghouse, and then you're in a mutual fund that people understand well, and you can get in and out every day at NAV. So we get the advantages. We're pleased to bring it to market. We think there are a lot of ways that people will ultimately want to get Bitcoin exposure, but this is certainly one way that will appeal to a constituency.
Okay, much more on the prospects for a Bitcoin ETF with Dave and Simeon on ETF Edge, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. They'll be joined by Dan Egan. He's the Managing Director of Behavioral Finance and Investing at Betterment. He'll delve deeper into the behavioral psychology behind this recent Bitcoin rally. ETFedge.cnbc.com. Halftime. Back right after this.